She's the boss when it comes to the Green New Deal, but she may not want to own it when she sees the latest estimate on just how much it's all going to cost the taxpayer. Here now to weigh in on this and a lot more, we got Liz Clayman, Carol Roth, John Layfield, and Jonathan Honig. But first, let's bring in American Action Forum President and former Congressional Budget Office Director Doug Holtz-Eakin. Doug, good to see you. You've been crunching the numbers for a while now. You say the new Green Deal would cost $93 trillion. That's the high end when all is said and done. How do you arrive at that figure?
Well, we took the new Green Deal seriously as a policy proposal. It's 14 pages. Those 14 pages contain specific projects from a net zero emissions transportation network to an electricity grid driven entirely by renewable energy, universal health care, guaranteed housing, food security, and guaranteed jobs. So you can look at those things and then go to the data and ask, how much would this cost? The high end is $93 trillion over the next 10 years, so $9 trillion a year. The low end's $51, and this gives you a notion of the scale of the proposals that are involved in this Green New Deal.
Doug, it's Liz Clayman. I read the whole deal since it came out. Good to see you. And, you know, a lot of it is a moonshot. A lot of it is not realistic. Sure. However, one of the things that she also neglected to put in here, and by the way, Congressman Markey was also part of this, was the cost of regulating it. And I understand that's about $1 trillion. But with all of these numbers, isn't this a country that was based on moonshots? Isn't that where the term came from, where we throw something out there, you aim for the stars, maybe you snag the moon, but the environment is an issue that even Republicans who have been polled also care about deeply?
Yeah, I think the right way to think about it is that there are three moonshots in there on the environment. There's the electricity grid, the transportation network, and there's retrofitting every house to a high level of energy efficiency. But there's also in there three things that are really not about that moonshot. They're about economic policy. They are universal health care, they're guaranteed jobs, they're food security. So there's a mixture of moonshots in there, and I, at least, as a slave to the numbers, like to know, hey, if this is going to have great national benefit, let's figure out how big those benefits have to be to exceed the cost. So the easier thing to do is to calculate the costs. I admit that. It's hard to calculate benefits. But I think politicians who make these proposals have an obligation to make the case for the benefits. We're just adding up what they cost.
Yeah, but you know what they're going to say. You know what AOC is going to say about the cost. She's going to say, oh, well, look at my Excel spreadsheet, or, you know, we need to jigger the numbers a little bit about, or she'll say, consider the cost of inaction. I mean, that's always the excuse when it comes to government control like this. And, you know, I saw very much the same argument when it came to Obamacare. The Republicans said, oh, we can't afford this. What they should be arguing, and Doug, I'd love your response, is the morality. Look, we get a lot out of fossil fuels. They power our economy. They're a benefit to mankind. So forget even the cost. What will man's life be like if we get rid of fossil fuels, as AOC and the Green New Deal are proposing?
So I'd say two things about that. I mean, the first is on the costs, just so people understand. Sure, there's a lot of uncertainty about this. Part of it's because they haven't written down in great detail what they want to do. If there's more detail, the costs will be more precise. And second is, we've heard a lot about how we were too low as much as too high. So, you know, the truth is still yet to fully be determined. But I'm with you in the following very specific way. If you read all 14 pages, you are struck by the breadth of the policy goals. But I am more struck by the difference in outlook for American life. A country based on freedom, individual economic choices dictated by households, knowing what's best for them. That's not in this plan. This is a very different vision of life in America.
Hey, Doug, John Layfield here. The Economist. The Economist magazine comes hardly a conservative magazine. Said that AOC's proposal, the Green New Deal, but it's her proposal or somebody else's, is not a serious proposal. It's just not something that's practical. Ernest Moniz, the former Energy Secretary of President Obama, said the same thing, that it was impractical and not realizable to achieve. I agree with all those sentiments. However, there are some things in this. When you have 12 cents a kilowatt hour across the United States, you tend to have energy homes that are inefficient as compared to, say, Germany, which has 35 cents, and Denmark has 41 cents. What part of this works? Does the retrofitting the homes and business, the super grid that we're talking about, a more energy efficient grid, what part of this works?
So I'd say two things. The first is I'm not comfortable just dismissing someone else's proposal as not serious. They could be quite serious, and we tried to take this seriously. This is what they think they would like to do. Let's see what it looks like. In that are some things that probably make a lot of sense, like energy efficiency in some homes. That's the biggest source of energy loss in the U.S. Moving the grid toward a more green footprint. What's probably wrong is the 10-year time frame, getting this all done in 10 years. We assumed it could be done. A lot of people say it just can't be done. And the way it's done. It's a top-down, regulatory-heavy approach. I'm an economist. I think we could have a very different economy in 10 years, one that's much greener, much more energy efficient. Just give it the right price incentives and let the private sector do it. So there are a variety of issues that are involved in looking at this.
Doug, it's Carol Roth. I guess from my perspective, it doesn't seem like a serious proposal at all. You know, on one hand, you don't talk about China, you don't talk about emerging markets. There's no mention of using nuclear energy. I guess my issue is that when you start putting numbers around it, it gives some level of credibility, as if that's something that we should be negotiating with. Are you concerned at all that by giving it that level of credibility, it actually takes it to the point of giving it more attention instead of saying go back to the drawing board and do something that's more realistic?
Well, honestly, I don't know. It's a fair point. I've never thought it would be harmful to know more about a specific proposal. I guess I've dedicated my adult life to the proposition that better informed policymakers will make better decisions. There's probably no evidence that's true, but that's what I do. And so we, you know, we put some numbers on this, and I don't know if 93 or 51 makes it more or less credible. That's an enormous cost. And so the benefits have to be even bigger to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, even the low figure is double the cost of our current government. So, I mean, it would double the budget, and where the money would come from is anybody's guess. But there is huge variation. I don't want to dig too much into the weeds, but for example, on the guaranteed jobs, you say it could be anywhere from $6.8 trillion over 10 years to $44 trillion. That's a huge range. Why is it such a big range?
Well, at one end, we assume you simply give these jobs to those who are unemployed. And these are, in fact, very pricey jobs. They say there should be a standard of living that's adequate for a family. It should include paid vacations, paid family leave, retirement benefits. So this is not just your average job. So they're the current unemployed. That's the low end. Or you could imagine that not only they get that job, but those people who are out of the labor force decide to come into the labor force, they get jobs. And there's some people working right now who don't have a job that's good. We'd have to upgrade them. So if we upgrade, attract new workers, and do the unemployed, it gets very big.
Did anybody notice in here?
It's very interesting.
Oh, go ahead, Carol.
No, I was just going to say it's interesting. I feel like the one person who is taking this very seriously is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. He wants to hold the Democrats accountable, and he wants anyone who is a supporter of the Green New Deal to go on record with a vote that's supposed to happen before the August break. So let's take a listen to what he had to say this afternoon.
I've been reading with some amusement that our friends on the other side seem to be reluctant to vote on the Green New Deal. The latest I read was that people were contemplating voting present. The only question I would ask is, if this is such a popular thing to do and so necessary, why would one want to dodge the vote?
Good for him. Good for him. Get people on the record. I mean, you need to be explicit. The goal of the green movement is not to help the environment. It is to hurt mankind. That's why environmentalists are against even nuclear energy, which has zero carbon footprint. So I think, you know, this leader is on the right track here. Get people on the record about being for environmentalism and literally wanting to hurt mankind. The more fossil fuels we've burned, the better man's life has become. That should be the standard here. Worry about man's life. Nature takes care of itself.
So Honig's out there not thinking about the next couple of generations. But did any of you guys notice that, and Douglas, as you, being an economist, you know all about dynamic scoring. In this report, it said that it will pay for itself through the savings of health costs because 200,000 people per year die of asthma-related problems. Dynamic scoring, as we all know, is like saying, oh, I know how much and how many calories are in a slice of pie in the sky. You just can't. You don't know. You can't be able to say that. But this is reminiscent of the GOP and the tax plan where they said it will pay for itself, and we are still waiting to see of the GOP and the tax plan where they said it will pay for itself, and we are still waiting to see most of that happen. So I'm just interested to know how this is any different from other dynamic scoring that we see by economists.
So Liz, you make a good point. I'm a big advocate of dynamic scoring. You know this. I have a history. But you have to understand it doesn't deliver miracles. Tax cuts don't pay for themselves. This is not going to pay for itself. There's some language in there that suggests that the workers in these new jobs will have so much more money, life will be great, and the economy will benefit. But that money had to come from somewhere. So you can't overlook that. This is not going to pay for itself. Tax cuts don't pay for themselves. If you are serious about this, vote for it. I think Senator McConnell has the right litmus test in our democracy, and make the case that these policies are worth it because they're not free.
And by the way, this, as former head of the CBO will have to score it at some point. Chances are they going to have the same kind of range that you do if individual parts of the Green Deal come up for a vote?
I don't think they will have to score it, David. The vote that the senator is talking about is a vote on a Senate resolution. The CBO scores legislation, not resolutions, so they won't have an obligation to score it, and they couldn't.
Well,
honestly,
thank God you did.
We made some fairly heroic assumptions to get where we got, and they need to write down a lot more to get the CBO levy.
Terrific work putting it down on paper, Doug. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate you coming in. Thanks very much. Come back.